So let's begin, excuse me, with some meditation. I can't remember the exact lyrics. There's some song that goes, you probably know the one, leave your worries behind, blah, blah, blah. On the sunny side of the street, okay. So you can think, as you sit down to meditate, all of the things that often preoccupy us that actually we should be applying antidotes to in everyday life also. Certainly in meditation, at this point, we shouldn't allow them to influence our mind. Everything is impermanent. All the things that we encounter anyway are everyday occurrences and karmic visions and so forth, are good fortune or bad fortune. Beyond that, they're empty. They have no ultimate reality. The way that our mind holds things is so important, earth-shattering, that we might, even in extreme cases, commit crimes or against others or against ourselves, commit suicide. Things are so bad. So just watch your breathing, first of all, with the intention of trying to develop a proper motivation, first of all, and in order to do so, you want to try to trick the mind from its usual continuity of discursive thoughts. You want to try to quiet it. So focus on the breathing as a method to allow the continuity of these other discursive thoughts to subside and to stop. Within that quiet state of mind, reflect how fortunate we are right now. We are alive as a human being in a world system where it's relatively easy, certainly possible, to develop renunciation. Not all the human continents are capable, world systems are capable of developing renunciation because the lifespans in some are fixed, very, very long. We have the incredible fortune of being at a time when the Buddha Dharma still exists in the world, the Buddha having appeared in the world and turned the wheel of Dharma, and it has not yet degenerated. There are Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and like-minded spiritual aspirants, Sangha, working toward these spiritual goals, even though there's so many temptations outside. There are even people who devote themselves financially and with their own personal time to benefact the Dharma, to make centers and possible, to make various holy objects possible for the benefit of sentient beings. If I don't practice the Dharma now, with all of this incredible opportunity, great teachers like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, perfect examples of how to practice, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche and the other great lamas. If I don't practice now, when will I ever be able to practice? My life is ebbing away with every moment, every second. I'm getting closer to the inevitable death. Certainly any intuition I have of where I might be reborn, any kind of grandiose fantasy that I'll necessarily be born again in high realm, has to be weighed against our knowledge of karma. In this and previous lives, it's always very difficult as a beginner in the spiritual path to accumulate more virtue than non-virtue. Up till now, perhaps we've created a lot of non-virtue. What could lie before us and other living beings, even though they and we live in relative comfort and happiness, relative security and so forth, the only thing that separates us from the hell realms or an animal rebirth or a rebirth as a hungry ghost is one breath. We breathe out but fail to breathe in, the last breath of life. Wherever I'm born in cyclic existence, wherever others are born that we might feel envious of or jealous of, there is no real happiness in cyclic existence. Under the control of karma and delusion, the high position or pleasure of the senses, the wealth, praise, fame, so forth, all of them can be understood to be dukkha, as the Buddha said, unsatisfactory, the nature of suffering, not real happiness, only assuaging one thirst, some itch, by coming in contact with something which itself is poisonous, contaminated. There's nothing that we're missing now. Within cyclic existence that we have to first experience. All living beings are exactly the same as us in wanting to be happy, wanting to be free of suffering. They, like ourselves, have experienced every samsaric state from the lowest to the highest in past lives. They've been related with us, each and every one, intimately, as mothers, as fathers, as friends. And they've also been equally our enemy. All living beings. For their sake, I must achieve not just liberation, I must achieve a state of omniscience from which I can effortlessly, spontaneously, skillfully lead them out of suffering in whatever is the proper order and sequence for them. To do that, I have to achieve that path myself. I have to tame my mind. I have to achieve enlightenment. And the supreme method to do that, from Lord Buddha's teachings are the teachings of Highest Yoga Tantra, one of the essential elements of which is taking the three bodies into the path, transforming impure death, intermediate state, and rebirth into the three holy kayas, the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya. So for that purpose, to become familiar with that, also as a reminder to instigate my practice, a reminder of death, the imminency of death. I'm going to meditate on the visions at the time of death, passing into the bardo and so forth. So think, at the time of death, this lifetime, there will definitely be a time, if I don't die in a very rapid way, in an accident or an explosion or something, there will be a time when my elements are absorbing the final death, the final signs of death. Whether I'm sitting up or lying down, if I'm conscious of that, I'll notice that first of all, of the various dissolutions, first the earth element absorbs, dissolves into the water element, the form aggregate, the solidity of the body. I look more emaciated. My eye faculty loses its power to support eye consciousness. To my mental consciousness, there appears the vision of a mirage. If I'm distracted and fearful, this may go unnoticed. But this inner sign is something that we can observe and cultivate. Concentrate on this as though happening in your mental consciousness, the vision of wavering light, like a mirage. Think, next, the water element itself will dissolve into the fire element. There'll be the vision of smoke. I'll be getting closer to death. At the time of the last clear light of death, the mother clear light, I must recall the meaning of emptiness. I must mix the Father, the Son and Mother clear lights. So I must meditate on emptiness now. So while I'm still conscious, thinking, recalling of this lifetime, the I that I've meditated on the emptiness of, the selflessness of, to duplicate that again now, the self that has motivated me to engage in negative activities, to be lazy, feel sorry for myself, to grasp, to get angry. This I appears to my mental consciousness, but there is no conceived object of that appearance. The mind grasps to it, the innate ignorance grasps to this, but the conceived object, the object believed to exist, that we're grasping to, assenting to, does not exist at all. The I, the self, is empty of true existence because the I is a dependent arising, merely imputed on the basis of the body, the four mental aggregates, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness. There is no other I whatsoever. After some time, the water element itself begins to absorb the feeling aggregate. The ear faculty loses its power to support hearing. The basic wisdom of equality, previously in the first absorption, the mirror-like wisdom, basic mirror-like wisdom absorbed. Now the basic wisdom of equality. The liquids of the body dry up, the moisture in the eyes and in the mouth. My mind is becoming slightly more subtle. If I'm not trained, it's easy to fear at this point. But if I'm not distracted, I can notice a vision of smoke in the mental consciousness, arising due to this dissolution of the elements. And at that point, recognizing previously there was the mirage-like vision. Next there'll be the firefly vision. Eventually I will experience the clear light of death. I must meditate on emptiness. So again, with this mind, although the vision may be prevalent in the mind, one can use that same mind to meditate on emptiness and supersede that vision of smoke. Even the aggregates, which are the basis for designating the person, each one of them individually is empty of true existence, not just the self being empty. There is nothing findable of the form aggregate, of the feeling aggregates. Discrimination, compositional factors, consciousness. They all exist merely as concepts, as names. And the fire element also dissolves, loses its potency. There's an ascendancy, temporary ascendancy of the air element. So we say it dissolves into the air element. The nose faculty, the ability that supports the ability to experience odors, dissolves. The aggregate of discrimination and the basic wisdom of individual analysis. The heat of the body diminishes, the digestion stops. If I'm going to be born in the upper realms, the heat leaves the feet first while the head is still warm. Or if I'm going to be born in the lower realms, the heat leaves the head and so forth first while the feet are still warm. All eventually absorbing to the heart, at which there is the vision of fireflies or sparks. I think previously there was the smoke appearance. Next there'll be the appearance of a dying butter lamp. Eventually the clear light of death. I must remember emptiness at that time. So again, meditate on emptiness now. All our goals, loved ones, even bodhicitta, wisdom of emptiness, all exist merely nominally as designations. There's no phenomena outside of ourself, whether it be other beings or states of mind, objects. Nothing exists from its own side in a findable way. Everything is empty of true existence. And the air element begins to absorb the aggregate of compositional factors, the basic wisdom of accomplishing activities, the tongue faculty, the body faculty absorb. To those around us, it seems that we are essentially almost dead as our breathing is becoming more and more labored, the air element ceasing. At our heart, to our mental consciousness, there appears the vision of a dying butter lamp. And I think previously I experienced the vision of fireflies while the fire element absorbed. Next there'll be the mind of white appearance. I must, at the time of the clear light of death, I must remember the meaning of emptiness. Mix that sun clear light with the mother clear light. So I'm going to meditate on emptiness to keep this mindfulness. All phenomena, even the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, are empty of true existence. That doesn't mean they don't exist conventionally, arising from causes and effects. But there's nothing findable amongst phenomena the way that our mind grasps. Phenomena exist conventionally merely as designations, merely as names, as concepts. There's no self, there's no aggregates, there are no friends, enemies, and strangers. There are no worries. There are no goals to attain. There's no non-attainment. Then as the consciousness aggregate begins to absorb, and the basic wisdom of Dharmadhatu absorb, the 80 indicative conceptions cease, dissolve, the winds that support them dissolve, while we still have a similar vision of the burning butter lamp. Then the white appearance, due to the opening of the crown chakra, the white element descends. There appears to my mental consciousness a vast vacuity. Dualistic appearances, very gross dualistic appearance, very much ceased. A vast spaciousness filled with a vibration of white light. And by the force of this meditation, we recognize this appearance as having no true existence, as all other appearances that occur to our mind. We meditate on emptiness. The emptiness of this appearance, the emptiness of all phenomena. As the red element ascends from the navel chakra, the lower winds having entered into the jewel and secret place chakras, opening them and rising through the central channel, as this red bindu, this constituent, rises to the heart, we have the appearance of a more subtle, a greater emptiness, pervaded by a more subtle vibration of copper red light, orange colored light. Due to this habituation, we, as with all other conventional appearances to our mind before when they arose, we recognize them as empty of having any inherent existence. We meditate again on emptiness. As these white and red constituents reach the heart chakra and the sixfold knot at the heart chakra loosens, these elements encapsulate the subtle energy, subtle wind energy and subtlemost mind at the heart chakra in the indestructible drop there. We begin to experience the first part of the black near attainment. even vaster vacuity, now without the sense of illumination, diminishing illumination first, while there's mindfulness, recognizing there's nothing outside findable as black appearance. The mindfulness of emptiness again dawns. All phenomena are empty of true existence. The conceived object of innate ego grasping does not exist. As the drops continue to merge at the heart chakra, fall into the second part of the black near attainment, without mindfulness, no thoughts, no sense of self. Finally, as all the airs absorb into that subtlemost mind and wind, there arises, there manifests the subtlemost clear light mind of death, the mother clear light. Like perceiving the clarity of space at the time of first dawn, before the sky has been polluted by the color of the sunlight. After a rainstorm or the monsoons, when the dust has settled, no more clouds in the sky, totally clear as though you could perceive forever. And due to our familiarity, our habituation, carrying this mindfulness to the state, we immediately recognize this as the meaning of emptiness. There is no I, there are no aggregates. No phenomena exist inherently. There's no sense of ego or the thought of a meditator, an observer, totally non-dualistic. However long we remain in that, at the end of that time when karma to remain in this state finishes, due to a slight tremor, the wind element moves and we exit the clear light of death, mother clear light, into the bardo state. First the black near attainment of the bardo state, subtler mind. We have a spontaneous bardo body already, arisen from the wind that is with that subtle mind. The red increase, the mind of radiant white appearance. The 80 indicative conceptions evolve. The basic wisdom of Dharma Dhatu, the air element starts to have ascendancy. We have the vision of a butter lamp. The fire element, fireflies, discrimination arises. As the water element evolves and fluidity takes place, our feelings, aggregates of feelings arise, until finally the solidity of our form becomes complete, form aggregate, earth element, and we are in the bardo state with the bardo body, no longer thinking of our name of the previous life or our goals of that life, our worries, our loved ones, our enemies. Just as now we don't remember our lives of the past. Without any obstruction, our body travels, sometimes frightened by various visions depending on our karma. If we were to try to utilize this in the practice of Highest Yoga Tantra, through having practiced sadhana again and again, when that first movement occurred and the bardo body was actualized, it would actualize in a subtle form of either a seed syllable or a subtle body that we had meditated on before. Whatever time it takes to take rebirth, whether it be as a human, an animal, a hungry ghost, a hell being, an asura, the devas of the desire realm or the form realm, the formless absorptions, of course, not going through a bardo. Whatever time it takes before we encounter that rebirth, we are in the bardo state. Having perhaps as many as several successive bardo deaths every 7 days, 7 times, until finally, somewhere, even not at the time of one of these 7-day deaths, can be right in the middle. It could be 1 minute after we enter the bardo, or 3 days into the 3rd cycle. There's no fixed time. We aggregate the conditions for rebirth. Say if, for instance, we're going to be born as a human, the fertilized egg of a mother is perceived as though it were a mother and father, actual human beings engaged in union, and out of attraction to either the father or the mother, depending on our future gender, we approach, seemingly seeing only the sexual organs, developing anger, and dying now from the bardo state, again from the black near attainment, dying through these stages, dissolution of the elements to the clear light of the bardo state, and then entering into the black near attainment from that clear light. We actually take the form aggregate of the fertilized egg successively as the red increase, white appearance, and so forth take place. The various faculties evolving, we actually appear as an embryo and as a child within the womb. So think, this process, which will definitely take place in the future, is something that I have been unaware of up till now. In order to understand it better, in order to utilize it, use it in my meditation for the welfare of others, I'm going to participate in the class tonight on these 3 basic bodies, transforming impure death, intermediate state, and rebirth into the 3 kayas. And then bring your attention back, present. Just in time. Someone's talking on the telephone outside. So, how was your meditation, Michelle? You look distraught. Was it good meditation? Okay. Died and went to heaven. What do they say? Is that what they say? Yeah. I thought I died and went to heaven. That expression. So, any questions about that meditation? Okay. David? No? No? Excuse me. So, last time I passed out the midterm exam that I know Thea took today, or I think she took today, right? So, why don't you grab your midterm exam and let's go over it quickly. Any question? Was it pretty simple? What did you find? Hard? Easy? What is that? That means it was really simple. It's laughable. So simple. So, liar, pants on fire. It wasn't simple. Okay, so should we go over all the questions, or should we just go over some of them? All of them. Okay. Okay. So what was the first question? I don't have one in front of me here. Okay. Who is the author? You have to answer.
Galway Lojo.
Yangchen Galway Lojo. You remembered that, or that's what you got afterwards?
I just forgot. So I went back. I didn't miss that, but I actually transcribed it at the beginning.
Okay. Okay. I'm just asking you. Did you actually remember that? You wrote that.
I actually, when I went home, I wrote it down so I would remember it.
Okay. Good. Okay. So you had remembered. You had to look it up afterwards. Okay. So Yangchen Galway Lojo, what's another name that he was known as? Do you remember? Akya Yongzin. That was when we studied mind and mental factors. One of the supplementary texts for that was one that was published at a translation published at the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives. It was also by Yangchen Galway Lojo. Akya Yongzin. What would that mean? Akya Yongzin. You know what Yongzin means? Yongzin means tutor. And so just like Senshab, like Kirti Senshab Rinpoche and other Serkon Senshab Rinpoche, what does Senshab mean? You know that title? Some people write Chenchab or something. It's Senshab. Do you know? Kind of debate partner. Sen is short for tseni, philosophy or debate. Shab is kind of honorific. Can mean feet, can also mean just is sort of an honorific particle. So Senshabs were positions that were held by very high meditators, tutors, kind of debating partners for certain beings. Like the Dalai Lama had some Senshabs. Do you know who one of the Senshabs of the Dalai Lama was? Yeah. Geshe Raptin at one point was one of the Senshabs of the Dalai Lama. Kirti Senshab Rinpoche is the Senshab of Kirti Rinpoche. Yongzin is another word, means tutor. And so the Dalai Lama had two tutors. So the elder tutor, the younger tutor, Ling Rinpoche and Kebdre Trijang Rinpoche. So Akya Yongzin was a tutor. I'm not sure if that means he was tutor to someone called Akya, or whether he was tutor to some other high being. So that's right. And what's the actual title of the text? Who's good? Thea?
Death, Intermediate State, and Rebirth in Tibetan Buddhism.
That's the title. That's the title of the English translation. That's good. Okay, that's good. That's what. But what's the actual title of the text? If you go to the title page, where was that? And then the word, actually, you'd have to put in parentheses death, intermediate state, and rebirth, because that's not actually part of the Tibetan title. Lamp thoroughly illuminating the presentation of the three basic bodies. So if you didn't know, if you were just a Tibetan going to the bookstore looking through these, oh, the three basic bodies sounds uninteresting, you know, you wouldn't know. Okay. Second question. What was the second question? Okay, is this text drawn from the Sutra or Tantra tradition, Dian? Tantra. That's a good answer. Why?
Because Sutra deals with the coarse winds in mind, and Tantra incorporates both the coarse and subtle winds and minds, and the same process that we go through in death is meditated upon in Tantra. This is the meditation we're practicing.
These subtle levels.
Subtle levels.
Right, that's a good answer. But also, aren't there a lot of quotations here from like Abhidharma Kosha and Abhidharma Samuccaya about these things? So it is the source material for it, like what are the qualities of the Bardo being? They're drawn from various texts. But you're right, I think, if you were to, I mean, it would have to be one of those nuanced questions that would have been very difficult in the last election to give a soundbite for. You know, everyone wanted to have it, oh, he said it this way, now he's flip-flopping, you know. He said it's Tantra, now he's saying it's Sutra, you know. We would be, I'm just joking, okay. I'm just teasing. Those of you, this was, what was this, 2004, this famous American election that was so contentious. So, it's still not over. So, I agree. I think basically it's drawn from the Tantras. I think Diana's, that's the basic answer. Yet, one would put some caveat saying that although much of the material is drawn from Abhidharma Kosha, Abhidharma Samuccaya, Sutra sources, but the basic thrust of the course is talking about how to practice this, these essential stages of highest yoga tantra. So that's a good answer. Okay, so the third one, so Diana just gave me her copy of the test here. So what are the 7 features of God and Goddess facing one another? What does that mean, first of all? What does that mean? Did you know?
I know I listed the 7.
You remembered them, or you put them down afterwards? Okay, no, let's just, okay, so you were lucky to find them. Okay, so what does this mean? Who can give the basic meaning of this? Eric, how about you? What does it mean, 7 features of God and Goddess facing one another? What are those features of? These are the features of a certain kind of Tibetan art form, or what? What?
Some hints you can give.
Some hints I can give? Georgie, what do you think?
I'm going to take a jab at it. Is it the state of union of Vajradhara?
It's the enlightened state that's achieved through Tantra. When that's achieved, it has these 7 features. One manifests necessarily as male and female deities embracing one another, God and Goddess, you know, sort of divine beings, not ordinary appearance of oneself. And they have these 7, excuse me, 7 features. Many times in Buddhism, when we talk, you know, philosophy, many places, 7 is considered a lucky number. Even on the dice, 7 is a lucky number, isn't it? Is that craps? I thought craps was 2 or something. Okay, whatever. I don't know. So 7, in Buddhism, one of the auspicious reasons for 7, like 7 bowls of water offered and so forth, is for the auspiciousness of attaining these 7 features. So what are they? Mark, who had a stab at it without checking in the book and has it written down? Anyone? Thea, you tried?
Well,
Okay.
I wrote the marks and signs of a Buddha.
Okay, so one of them would be, you think, having the 32 major marks and 80 minor signs of a Buddha? Okay. Is that any different than in the Sutra path? When one attains Buddhahood according to the Sutra explanation, although Tantra says it's not exactly right, it says that one has these major and minor marks also. So that would be something kind of the same. Which one of those is this? Which one of these 7 on page 26 and 27? Is that one of them?
Yeah.
Number 1, complete enjoyment, having all the major and minor marks of a Buddha. So having those, that's good. Then facing one another, that is, as a male and female deity, because one of the ways that one induces the bliss, realizing emptiness, is through this karmically dependent arising that we've engaged in over numberless lifetimes. One of the most strongly visualized blissful experiences, easily conjured up because of our familiarity over numberless lifetimes, is copulation. So this union, here facing one another, kajor in Tibetan can mean also as though they were kissing. In other words, not just kissing, but sexually in union, okay, facing one another. Then having great bliss, so that in that tantric tradition, this is again something exclusive. The first one, we would say having all the major minor marks of a Buddha, that would be similar to Sutra. God and Goddess facing one another, that's not part of the Sutra tradition of achieving enlightenment. Great bliss is something that's mentioned but not in the same way. This subtle bliss consciousness, that's a special quality of Highest Yoga Tantra. Non-inherent existence, that's the name of the fourth quality. A bliss consciousness in meditative equipoise on the emptiness of inherent existence in a non-dualistic manner, like water put into water. So when it says non-inherent existence, everything is non-inherently existent, right? So it doesn't mean, oh, this is a special feature. When you achieve enlightenment, you're non-inherently existent. That's not what's meant. It means that there is not only this great bliss consciousness, but the wisdom aspect of that consciousness realizes emptiness directly in a non-dualistic fashion. That's 4. Then completely filled with compassion, or filling with compassion, the mental continuum always and thoroughly suffused with compassion for sentient beings. This is what it motivates the person to take this kind of aspect to benefit sentient beings a long time, to initiate the whole path. Always started out of compassion to develop bodhicitta and so forth. Then uninterrupted continuity. Here it says, not abiding in the extremes of either cyclic existence or solitary peace. Remember we talked about the extremes of, who would fall into the extreme of cyclic existence? All the sentient beings who had not achieved nirvana, right? Who would fall into the other extreme of solitary peace? Arhats. That would be one of the dangers that the Bodhisattva would try to not fall into either of these extremes. You know, how would you fall into the extreme of cyclic existence? By not eliminating the afflictions. How would you fall into the extreme of solitary peace? By eliminating the afflictions but not generating compassion and bodhicitta and remaining in that bliss of nirvana for a long period of time. So this is what in this interpretation is meant in the commentary here by uninterrupted continuity. And then the 7th feature, non-cessation, doesn't mean that you haven't ceased the delusions. It means not ceasing until cyclic existence is emptied. So that's a way that it's expressed in the sutras. The same word, tongba, until until cyclic existence is empty of sentient beings, not ceasing. So those are the 7 features of Father and Mother facing one another, or God and Goddess facing one another. Okay. Did anyone get that one? Okay, yes. Who knows?
Generation stage, visualizations we might have as a part of
Yeah, when you visualize, for instance, in the, if you visualize Vajradhara in front, embracing his consort, it should have those 7 features. And this is the end state. This is the qualities of the enlightenment that's achieved through the practice of Highest Yoga Tantra. It has these 7 features. So you might.
Does that mean if you achieve enlightenment through the sutra path, you become a Buddha without these features, without all those features?
So what do you think? Can you achieve? So Frank's question was, if you achieve enlightenment through the sutra path, you achieve enlightenment without these 7 features? Well, according to Highest Yoga Tantra, you have to, at some point, enter into the practice of Highest Yoga Tantra to achieve enlightenment. What's mentioned as enlightenment in the sutra path, the accumulation of merit over 3 countless great eons, is basic, from the Highest Yoga Tantra point of view, is basically correct, except at the very end of the 10th bhumi, one has to, if one hasn't encountered Highest Yoga Tantra before that, one is initiated, empowered by the Buddhas, and one receives the knowledge, wisdom, initiation, and so forth, actual consort, and one experiences this very blissful consciousness. So again, it's a nuanced kind of, would have been difficult in the last election. That's the kind of answer. Okay. So then, next one. What are the 6 constituents womb-born humans of this world are said to have? Okay, Venerable, do you know? The 6 constituents. Venerable, back there. Sophia, what are the 6 constituents? In Tantra, it's said that there are 2 ways of interpreting. There are 6 constituents that womb-born human beings, not all human beings are born from the womb, but those who are born from the womb necessarily have these 6 constituents that are necessary for the achievement of enlightenment in one lifetime, entering the path from the beginning. One has to have this kind of rebirth with these 6 constituents. What are they? Isn't that what they say? Is that like on Jeopardy or something like that? What is, or what are? So what are these 6 constituents? Do you know? Bodhicitta? Which kind of bodhicittas do you mean? You mean like conventional and ultimate bodhicitta? White and red constituent drops. Okay. In one interpretation, yeah, that could be. What else?
Male or something?
Was it male and email? What?
I'm not sure, sorry. I
Okay.
even got the...
So of the 6, one way of talking about it is there are 3 that are received from the father. Venerable's got, and 3 received from the mother. So you could start from that. So received from the father are what? Bone, marrow, and regenerative fluid. So possibly what's received from the father is this initial white bodhicitta that, or in the fertilized egg that still is within our body, forming at the heart chakra and so forth. And from the mother, we receive flesh, blood, and skin. Okay, so blood here also can imply that fertilized, that egg, which is fertilized with this semen. What's another way of saying these 6? Earth, water, fire, and wind. Usually the 4 elements, but that's easy to remember. But then, remember when we talk about the practice of Highest Yoga Tantra, there are 3 important things. Wind being one of them, which is the mount, not only the gross element wind, but the subtle wind, which is the mount of the mind. The bindus, the white and red constituents, and what's the sixth one? And the channels, the nadis. Okay, so that would be the answer for that. Then, how many channels do humans of this world have? 72,000. So I thought you were going to say, well, on my TV we have 96. So these channels are nadis, or means these subtle part of our subtle body, our vajra body, that the subtle winds actually can pass through. Now, my understanding is that although they are not visible to the eye, they can be severed by an operation. That's why sometimes lamas, very highly realized lamas, don't have operations, open body operations, if they're practicing Highest Yoga Tantra, because it can affect the nadis and their ability to meditate on that. It's something to check, though. Okay, 72,000. Good, Diane. Diane has 2 for 2. What is the name of the navel chakra? Don't say navel chakra. Why is it so called, and how many petals does it have? Who hasn't answered here? Leo, do you know?
It's called Tumo.
The navel chakra is called Tumo? Is that right? We have to make that sound. Tumo, there is an element at the navel chakra called the fierce one, which is that red, some red element, some red bindu is there. Tumo is a Tibetan word that means fierce one, female, the female particle, fierce female. But that's not the name of the navel chakra. What is, in Tantra, what's the name of the navel chakra? Wheel of emanation, or chakra. Wheel here is what we say chakra, the emanation chakra. Why is it called that?
Emanates bliss. Great bliss.
The tumo emanates bliss. Is that right? At the navel is a wheel of emanation which has 64 petals. This is on page 31, and is so called because the fierce one, Tumo, which is the emanator of great bliss, abides at the navel. Okay, good. And then we'll do one more before we take a little break, because I know this is really taxing you. What are the 25 gross objects that must dissolve at the time of death of humans? How many sets are there? You know, there's certain sets. Who got these? Did you got them? Without reading the book?
I read the book before, and then I picked it up.
I hope you read the book before. Otherwise, I don't know how you would have known any of this. Okay.
Yeah.
So how many sets, what are the basic 5, what are the basic sets? How many sets of things are there? 5. What are they?
The actives.
Aggregates absorb. How many aggregates are there?
5.
There are 5 aggregates, so that would make 5, right? Then what's another set? The basic wisdoms. How many basic wisdoms are there? 5, so that's 10. Then what else? The elements. How many elements are there? Okay, so we got 14 now. We got to get 25. Then what else? Faculties, right? How many faculties are there? So that makes up for one of the, because there's 6 and 4 make 10. So now we've got up to what? 20, right? Then what's the 5th one? What are they called? Objects of the various senses, our inner objects. So that is the shape and color of our body and so forth. So those make up the 25 gross objects. Okay? There are other things that absorb also. So should we take a little break? You need some regenerative sustenance? All right, so we're going to continue just finishing up this, going over the exam. So lists the inner visions perceived at the time of death. You notice there's a slightly larger space here. The implication was there was enough space to write in there. Okay, who would like to list the inner visions perceived at the time of death? Carrie, I'm sure, would like to do.
We'll start out with Blue
Blue Mirage.
Mirage. I see the Blue Mirage. They seem to be a little blue shimmery things.
Okay, could be bluish. I don't know if it has I haven't heard that it had any particular tint, but you can if you want. A mirage-like vision. Then?
The next one would be like smoke billowing and a smoke filter.
Smoke billowing, yeah. Smoke-like vision. Mhm.
And then the next one is like sparks or fireflies.
Right. Fireflies or sparks.
And then the next one would be waning oil.
Waning or Johning? Which one? Okay. That's just teasing. I was thinking of Wayne's World. Waning butter, waning lamp, right?
And then you would have the white vision like a bright moonlit night.
So it's not so much like a bright moonlit night, because sometimes you might think that you see the light of the moon. It's as though, and not necessarily the white reflected off the sky, it's just as though sky is pervaded by a white vibration, like the vibration of the light of the moon. Okay, so white appearance. It's called the white appearance, right?
Next one would be red appearance and copper.
Now, is that called a red appearance? The first one's called a white appearance. Second one's called a red increase. Why? Because it's even more. There's even a greater sense of vacuity. It's more subtle. And then
Black irritation.
black near attainment, called thus because.
You're almost to the state.
Nirvana.
Near Nirvana. So it's the other
Clear light. You've almost attained the clear light. And then
And then the next one is clear light.
it's clear light. Yeah, no, it's clear light. It's called clear light. Good. Excellent.
I'm going to leave the room so I don't hear the rest of the test because I'd actually like to take the test. So.
Oh, okay. We'll call you.
Okay.
You can have a cup of coffee outside. That's a good idea. So, and then 9. At what point are the 80 indicative conceptions dissolved, and what do they indicate? Don.
Just before the white appearance, they dissolve.
Right before the white appearance. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And they indicate each set of them, which I don't have memorized, or the number of them, but the first set being associated with the white appearance is indicative of that subtlety of those sets of winds associated with that, and those with the red indicative of the more subtle mind of those, and down to black energy.
Pretty close. Would anyone like to embellish on that? He said they're indicative of the white. What do they actually indicate?
Let me see if I'm the imprints or the effects of each of those stages as they proceed in reverse order from the clear light into the bardo.
From the clear light into the bardo. Sure. What do they indicate?
They're indicative of the coarseness of the mounting winds, that there are 3 levels of coarseness in the mounting winds.
Those delusions, those conceptions rather, have mounting winds that are of various levels of subtlety or grossness. We could put them in 3 categories. What do those 3 levels indicate? They are, but that's not what they indicate. They're called indicative conceptions because, let's say, a meditator who notices that those 3 sets, some of them have grosser movement of wind toward their objects. Some have intermediate movement of wind. Some of them have more subtle movement of wind toward their objects. They serve to indicate that the places where they've come from, that is, the imprints of those minds, arise from imprints on the mind of white appearance, red increase, and black near attainment. So they serve to indicate that those three minds themselves have gross, middling, and subtle mounting winds. Because their mounting winds, the mounting winds of these 80 indicative conceptions, have these three levels of grossness and subtlety. They arise as imprints from these, on these three states of mind. Okay, that's how it's explained in our text at any rate. So something to think about a little more. I see some of you perplexing. Okay. What process gives rise to the white appearance? David, what's the... Well, think about it. Remember when we're doing our meditation at the beginning? We say, now so-and-so happens, and there is the appearance of a white, the white appearance, like a vast vacuity filled with white vibration. What's the cause of that? It just could be anything. It's just sort of like the muscles of the leg constricting, or what is it? The white bodhicitta, continue. I'll give you a little hint. So, yeah. Right. So how does that happen? At the time of death?
At death.
When the other winds have absorbed, the four elements have absorbed, up to the air element, and the 80 indicative conceptions have absorbed. So everything is getting closer and closer. Not all in the central channel yet, but almost all the winds of the body are migrated to the two side channels at least, around the central channel. The winds in the upper part, from above the heart up in the two side channels, they tend to migrate toward the top crown chakra now, opening that chakra, because when the winds enter in there, that loosens the knot. So as the air enters into the central channel, the two side channels have less tenacity to hold, and also the central channel becomes more full. The white element there begins to descend, and it's said that it's due to that white element descending that there is a consciousness that arises now, a subtler consciousness, sort of in the central channel in a sense, localized, that has this appearance of whiteness. So in the same way, if someone were to ask, what's the cause for the red increase, what would you say? Right, mainly from the navel chakra, right? And that's come about because the winds below the heart start to go down and open up the lowest chakra, the end of the sexual organ, they call the jewel, and the secret place at the chakra near the base of the spine on the central channel. And as the winds enter into there and open the navel chakra also, the red element there ascends up. So there's the red vision. And then, of course, when they encapsulate the indestructible drop at the heart, that's when we have this appearance of blackness, as though there's not the same kind of luminosity any longer. Okay, good. So you knew. You just had to remember that you knew. You're already Buddha. No. What is the actual death in this context, and why is it called the basic Dharmakaya? Mr. Jason Greenberg.
The actual death is the clear light.
Clear light in meditation?
Clear light of death.
Clear light of death, right?
And then what was the second question?
And it says, and why is it called the basic Dharmakaya?
That's the basis which is to be transformed into the path of the basis of our ordinary death is to be transformed through the path of Highest Yoga Tantra into the actual Dharmakaya.
There you go. 100%. 100%. even with a head cold and taking care of his wife and family, he's still got 100%. Okay. What are the sun clear light and mother clear light, and how are they mixed? Miss Diana Finnegan? No. Wedigan. She's Wedigan.
So the sun clear light is something you can achieve this lifetime in yogi on completion stage, absorbing all the winds into the central channel and then using that to meditate on emptiness to be the sun clear light.
So what is the sun clear light?
It's reaching the subtle most mind and using that to meditate on emptiness.
So I think if you took off, I mean, if you just wanted to get down to the nitty gritty, it would be just the end point there. It would be the very subtle, clear light mind actualized in meditation, realizing emptiness directly. That would be the actual sun clear light. The fully qualified one. You could have a sun clear light that's realizing emptiness with a generic image, with a mental image. That would still be called sun clear light, but it wouldn't be the fully qualified. So what's the mother clear light?
So the mother clear light is the clear light of death. And so then when you mix the two.
So the mother, although the sun clear light is a wisdom consciousness, the mother clear light is simply the objective clear light of death. Is that what you're saying?
Fully qualified mother clear light would be then mixing the two so that the clear light of death is realizing emptiness.
Right. So, but say the sun clear light, is the sun clear light refer to the objective clear light that arises in meditation or the subjective mind? There's probably one of both. There's an objective sun clear light, that's the clear light that's arisen, just what arises to that mind. And then the subjective clear light, the subjective sun clear light, I would imagine, is the actual fully qualified one, is the one that's recognizing that appearance as emptiness. So, but in terms of the mother clear light, what's the mother clear light? What would be the... Because we're talking about mixing the sun clear light and the mother clear light. The mother clear light sounds as though it's, if you talk about the subjective mother clear light, what would it be? Necessarily realizing emptiness?
Clear light of death.
Just having an awareness of that, a consciousness that is ascertaining and not distracted, ascertaining that vacuity, because the terminology is such that you mix the sun clear light with that. Huh? Good. Okay. 101%, Dorothy. I'm sorry. You've been beaten out. Okay. Number 13. Is the clear light of death in general a fully qualified clear light? Thea.
Not for the ordinary person, where it's just a natural evolution into the death state, realizing that clear light. So that a qualified clear light would have to be one in which one uses that moment to meditate on emptiness.
So where the sun and mother clear lights are actually mixed?
Yes.
Good. 102%. Okay. The intermediate state, the bardo, is simultaneous with what vision? Mark.
With the black neartainment on the other side.
The black neartainment on the other side.
As you're coming back into the bar, as you're coming into the bardo.
Yeah. What's that called? The reverse order. Yeah, reverse order. Because when we here, this terminology of forward order and reverse order is useful to know, because when we talk about the 12 links, we sometimes talk about the forward order. I mean, it's just labeled. You could call 1 to 12 forward, or you could call 12 to 1 forward. It's just labeled. But here we're calling forward order what? Mirage, smoke, fire, all of this in that order, up to clear light. Then the reverse order is coming out of the clear light. You could call that forward order, but this is the terminology. It's merely labeled. This is how so it's simultaneous. As soon as you've left the clear light of death, there's just a slight tremor within that. The wind begins to move. As soon as that happens, the clear light of death dissipates, and one has the black near attainment, and one is in the bardo state. Okay, good. Is that? Oh no! Is that Pepto-Bismol? Is that question so tough? Is that what that is? Is that Pepto-Bismol? My God. Talk about a serious student. Here's a guy who's sweating out that question. He had to have Pepto-Bismol afterward. What are the 5 features of an intermediate state being? Leo, Riley. It's a tough one, so. Yeah. How about some of them?
Well, its limbs are all present. They're fully functional.
Its limbs are all present? Or its faculties? You could say both. How about, okay, so its faculty, the main thing is its faculties are all complete. Unlike someone who might be born having defective faculty, ear faculty, eye faculty, or something like that. What about its actual limbs? What's the point about those? Is it that they're all complete? I mean, there's something to be with complete. They arise spontaneously without sort of a slow evolution, because as an embryo, our limbs, at first we have no, one looks at the embryo would have no sense that there are any kind of limbs there. But the bardo being comes spontaneously with these limbs. What are some other? That's good. If you knew I was going to ask you this one, how come you didn't check? I just teasing. You said I knew you were going to ask me. Okay.
Is it indestructible? Like a Vajra? Was that one of them? It was.
Since it has a subtle body, it cannot be destroyed even by a Vajra, by a diamond. Good. So it's indestructible. Anyone else?
I don't know if this is one of the 5 or not. I know characteristic of it is the smell referred to. I don't think that's one of the 5.
It's not one of the 5 here. It can consume smells. It doesn't have to. But here, the other 2, besides having all its faculties, and then second, being born spontaneously, all its major and minor limbs are simultaneously completed. Since it has a subtle body, it cannot be destroyed even by a diamond. This is on page 51 and 52. Except for birthplace, such as a mother's womb, it is not obstructed even by mountains, fences, and so forth. I think it says in the sutras also that it cannot pass through the Vajra-seated Bodh Gaya. Is one of the other places that impedes it, or something like that. And then through the force of karmic powers, it can in an instant go wherever it wants to, and not even a Buddha can stop it. Well, it's a little bit having to do with, like say for instance, if it thinks about, like say Dorje in the bardo state thinks, I'd like to be in Los Angeles. Boom, he's in Los Angeles, instantaneously. The bardo Los Angeles. Wherever he wants to go. Yet he wouldn't necessarily. All right. No, wherever, if he thinks, I want to go to a wet place, I want to go to a light place, he can just go there instantaneously. When we talk about the Buddha's qualities, the Buddha's, these are all related in a certain sense. When we talk about the Buddha's omniscience and omnipresence, also they use that in Christian terminology also, don't we? We talk about God, the Godhead as being omnipotent. What does that mean? Omnipotent means having all power, right? Omnipotent. Omniscient, all-seeing. Omnipresent, always present everywhere. So from a Buddhist perspective, omnipresence and omniscience are related because omnipresence kind of indicates the air element pervades all existence. So the Buddha experience is not something that's localized in one place. It's not like the Buddha has to think, okay, I'm going to go over there and think what those people are doing. He's there already. It's like, you're there. And because the wind is there, and because the wind and mind are never separated, the mind knows all phenomena because it is cognizing everything because it is everywhere. Okay, I mean that's one of the reasons there. So here there may be some similar kind of relationship. We're talking about not being obstructed. It's kind of like being neutrino-like, right? Being very, very subtle. It doesn't have any kind of gross obstruction, and it can go wherever it wants very quickly. Okay. What are the 5 features? 16. Must all rebirth states pass through the intermediate state? Michelle.
I was just going to say it's the one I didn't answer. I went and watched the news.
This is too much to believe. He knew I was going to ask him that one. Okay, that's it. Right.
I just got so frustrated.
Okay, so what's the question? Let's work it out.
Must all rebirths pass through the intermediate state? So I'm going to say yes because it's a rebirth.
Is that a good answer? What if you can't you ask some, don't you get to ask some expert or something? You can ask Frank. Elect.
I'll have Frank answer for me.
Okay. What is that program? What do you think, Frank?
Not the formless realms. No, we're reborn in the formless realms.
How about spontaneous rebirth in the human realm? Do you have to pass through the bardo? Few exceptions. I haven't heard of those exceptions. So generally our text says that if you, other than being reborn, other than being reborn in the formless realms, in which case you don't have a bardo experience, right from the clear light of death, exiting that you immediately have the experience, the mental experience of that formless realm. Other than that, you always pass through the bardo state. So actually there was another question besides this. There's a couple more yet. I'm going to ask another question. This is extra credit for those of you who didn't get the rest. So Sophia's going to answer this. Sophia, Venerable, are all, no, don't be sorry yet. Sorry, after you answer. Are all sentient beings included in the 6 realms?
All sentient beings included in the realm.
Are all sentient beings included in the 6 realms? The 6 realms are what? Hell, preta, animal, human, asura, and suras includes the form and formless also. So does that include all sentient beings? Why not?
Intermediate state beings and even beyond. Sentient being means, according to my, understanding.
So first of all, the first part of your answer is correct. Bardo beings are not included in those 6 realms. That's why if you see a picture of the 12 links, the Tibetan tankas of the 12 links, they have the 6 realms, or what do they also have? Sometimes they have the 5. They put the 2 God realms together sometimes. They have the 5 or 6 realms. And then in the very center, there's another black circle with some beings going up and some going down. That's the bardo. Do you know what I'm talking about? I don't think we have one here right now. But then in the very center of that, there's what? A snake and a chicken and a pig biting one another's tails. The three poisonous minds that give rise to one another. So that was one part. So you were right on that. And then you wanted to add something else?
According to my understanding, sentient beings means the beings below Buddha.
Right. Actually, the Tibetan word that we usually translate as sentient being is semchen. Literally, it means having mind. It's actually the Tibetan word is just the Sanskrit word is just sattva. Same word as in bodhisattva, but there the word sattva also we translate in bodhisattva. We translate it as not semchen. We translate it as sempa. The pa meaning heroic, like pao, like a heroic mind. A person with a heroic mind is a sattva. So a sattva can mean someone with a mind or someone with a heroic mind, depends on the context. So the Tibetans translated it sometimes as semchen, sometimes as sempa. And semchen, though, doesn't mean just having a mind at all, because Buddha has a mind. What about that, Venerable? Buddha has a mind, so it must be semchen. Because it means, in this case, it means having a mind not yet perfected, with having a mind with some imperfections. So the Buddha is not a sentient being. How about other beings besides the 6 realms and the bardo? What about the pure realms? Pure lands. Are the beings there? Are they not sentient beings? Are they in any of the 6 realms? Pardon? Yeah, like say for instance, Tushita heaven, is that it's said to be on the outskirts of that level of the God realm called Tushita, sort of like a suburb. But are they considered God beings? I don't think so. I don't think they're considered in the God realm. And there are other pure lands that are not necessarily associated with one of those realms, I think. So I'm not sure. I don't think they're, maybe you can ask some Lama, maybe that's another exception, but maybe they are technically part of some concentration or something. I'm not sure. Are they sentient beings?
Well,
Hinayana arhats you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Right.
In one sense, they're not maybe perfected yet, but they're not in.
You're talking about arhats without a remainder of contaminated aggregates, right? Because if they're still human, they're arhat like Shariputra and so forth. They were arhats. They were definitely humans. But you're talking about someone who's already passed away and is in nirvana, sort of parinirvana, right?
Well, there's kind of an interesting question, but let's take the ones who passed away.
Because I mean, the arhats who are humans are humans. They still have a human basis. They're in one of the 6 realms. But the arhats who are meditating without a basis of a body any longer, do you think they're not in any of the realms, any of the 6 realms? What do they have to do to meditate on them? They're not in samsara. Were they in samsara when they were with the form aggregate, when they still had a body?
That was part of my hesitation when you asked about was the body or not.
So it said they've abandoned suffering and the cause of suffering, right? Because they've achieved nirvana. But that doesn't mean that they don't have a continuity of the contaminated aggregates. That's in the lower tenets, that's what's meant by nirvana with remainder. That's how they interpret. Nirvana with remainder means with the remainder of the contaminated aggregates, meaning the form aggregate mainly, They can still have contaminated feelings. I mean, they can still have feelings. You know, like they're cut and they can still feel that, but they don't feel any mental aversion to that or any kind of a sense that I am experiencing this.
Are arhats called semchen?
I think so. Other than Buddha, all of them would be semchen. All of them would be sattva. All of them would be sentient beings. They still have a mind with imperfections.
Then the arhats.
You could use the word arhat for Mahayana arhat, but we just mean Hinayana arhat.
Arhats without remainder don't seem to be in the desire realm.
They don't seem to be in the desire realm. That seems pretty clear. They're not humans, they're not pretas, they're not in hell. But maybe, something to investigate, think about, maybe they are necessarily in one of the concentrations. Because it said that the Buddhas awaken them after many eons from their concentration, and they make them known, they make them understand that they have not yet eliminated all the faults from their mind. So that would seem to imply they were in meditative equipoise, possibly in one of the, like the first concentration or the second concentration or something like that. So something to investigate. I don't know. But it's kind of interesting to once you know more about this, these are the kind of questions the Geshes used to debate about once they had studied all of these different subjects, Abhidharma and Madhyamika. Then when you have that massive information, you go back and correlate it all, you know. Those are the kind of questions you talk about over tea. Okay? Then, good. So 17, what is meant by the statement, an intermediate being has the shape of the prior existence or prior state? Who didn't I ask? Oh, I keep on forgetting your name. What is this young lady's name? Nancy. What is meant by that statement? Intermediate being has the shape of the prior existence. So does that mean like if we're when we die now, we'll have the shape of a human? Prior existence, right? Pardon me? I mean something else.
Relating the death of the new life. So you have the new life, and then that's the prior part, and then you go.
So there's different kinds of
Connecting with the new life.
Yeah.
It's the first moment, and then that's prior, and then.
I think you've got the point. The word, some people had misinterpreted what prior existence means. There's a technical term that comes in the Buddha's teachings. When the Buddha talked about prior, there's birth existence, the moment when conception takes place. Then the moment from the next moment until death is called the prior existence. So that's right. It doesn't mean the Bardo being will have the shape of, if we die as a human, that the Bardo being will have a shape of as the human. If we're to be born as a dog, that future dog life is called the prior existence of that dog life, you know, from the second moment till the time of death. So the Bardo being has that shape. So right. So 104%. Very good. Okay, very good. And in what form did Shakyamuni Buddha, enter the womb? Did I skip one? Is there an intermediate state for those who have committed the actions of immediate retribution? Don. There is. How come? Don't they immediately go to hell? It's the rules. So what's the meaning of immediate retribution then? As I say, actions of immediate retribution. Don't you get retribution, the suffering, immediately? What's the sense of immediately then? I think the sense, almost immediately. The 5 actions of almost immediate retribution. Because there's always a Bardo there first. What do you think, Dorji? We can't give him full credit. He's going to have to bring some calzones next time. They purify, that's another question, but they're called actions of immediate retribution because without another rebirth state, one will be born in the very next lifetime in the hell realms. It doesn't mean there's no bardo, but it means that between this life and the next life, there's no, between this life and the hell realms, there's no other rebirths. Maybe you're born as a dog or a cockroach first, and then you go to hell. Not like that. You go directly to hell. How's it go? Go to hell, go directly to hell, do not pass go, do not collect $5, $500, $200, whatever you were saying. Okay, good. In what form did Shakyamuni enter the womb? This one is for Diana. Or Mark. No, Diana. Yeah. You're a gentleman. You give it to.
I put down a 6-tusked white elephant, but I realized I have no idea what the symbolism.
Do you remember, were you here last class? Okay, remember it's in the Lalita Vistara Sutra and in the Vinaya, other stories of the Buddha, it says that when the Bodhisattva leaves Tushita heaven, from the Mahayana point of view, he's not entering the bardo. From the Mahayana point of view, he's already manifesting, the first of the 12 deeds of the Buddha. He's already Buddha. One of the deeds, of course, is attaining enlightenment, but that's just a show, So he queries the other gods and asks them, and one of the gods is familiar with the Brahmanic legends and so forth, which say that the Buddha enters into the mother's womb in the form of a white elephant with 6 golden tusks. And so that's not contradictory with understanding, if you were to say, on the Abhidharma, well, it says if he's going to be born as a human, as Siddhartha, then the prior state is a human. He should come down as a human. So some of the Abhidharma texts say he comes in the shape of a human, small boy, with the 32 major marks and 80 minor signs. But there's no contradiction with that, because that's just from the point of view of assuming it's a bardo state, in which case it would have to be prior state. And because of Mark's kindness in giving that question to Diana, the final question goes to Mark. Are intermediate state beings able to communicate with their loved ones of the past lives? Explain.
Lost all their memory of that life. So
they've lost all their memory of that life? So the bardo being can't come back. The bardo being is not ghosts? Like when you go into these haunted places and there's someone wearing the armor and everything, and I died here, and they say, or something.
Those are just other spirits.
From the point of view
but
of...
not necessarily that person.
Not necessarily, but could be?
I'm open to the possibility.
What about necessarily not that person? From Buddhist perspective, once you leave the body in the time of death and enter into the bardo state, a new mind arises, and there's no recognition of that being your former body. What are some exceptions? Say a bodhisattva who's doing this, not yet enlightened, but still with a continuity of mindfulness. They'll rise in this and they'll say, oh, that was my body before. They can have some kind of continuity of mindfulness. But ordinary beings like ourselves, like when you're born now, you don't remember, oh, boy, that bardo was really a trip. And that last life, wow. We don't have that kind of mindfulness, although it's possible. Right. I think your answer was right. It was not necessarily. And the suggestion I made was necessarily not, wouldn't. Sorry, David, go ahead.
I guess it's not that they're not able to. It's that they don't remember, so therefore they don't.
There's something called, there's different kinds of obstructions. I'm not sure what the one going into the bardo is called, but going into the womb, there's something called the womb, the obstruction of the womb, in which you don't recall your former lives because of some kind of obstructions arising because of that. Nancy?
Did you just say that a bodhisattva could remember some things from the past about their...
Sure.
Okay, when they enter, just like immediately?
Sure. Completely. Some bodhisattvas, higher bodhisattvas, or bodhisattvas in the tantric sense, tantrikas on the paths, they can be totally mindful. They enter into the clear light. They enter into the bardo state with a conception of divine pride of being the deity. They enter into the union of the father and mother's egg and sperm with mindfulness that they're doing this, with volition. They arise within the womb with volition, remembering everything that took place, all the things they'd done in the past, all their plans that they're going to do. It depends, on the level of bodhisattva. Some at we're talking about very, very high level bodhisattvas, but something that's possibly happening in the world today. Some of our teachers and great beings like that. Other tulkus or bodhisattvas that arise like that may have more limited mindfulness through those stages. It's not necessary that they have mindfulness, but it can increase as time goes on. I think I mentioned to you once, the Lama who discovered the 14th Dalai Lama, who identified the 14th Dalai Lama? Ketsun Rinpoche. Do you remember in Dharamsala, Ketsun Rinpoche? So Ketsang Rinpoche, if you saw the movie Kundun or you read the life story of the Dalai Lama, he was he was a Rinpoche. He knew the 13th Dalai Lama, and he was sent as one of the parties to search for the 14th Dalai Lama. And he was in Amdo, and they had seen some area where the temple had the turquoise tiles, like the visions that were seen by the regent of Tibet in Lamo Latso, this great lake of Pelden Lamo. So they thought, maybe it's here, and they came. He was dressed, Ketsun Rinpoche was dressed as one of the servants. And he had given his robes to one of the servants so that he could sort of watch from the sidelines, watch what's happening. And so he eventually was able to identify the Dalai Lama and so forth. And so I asked Rinpoche, he's very, very humble, very wonderful being, but never would say anything like he has any qualities at all. So one time I asked him, Rinpoche, when you were younger, because usually the Rinpoches would manifest memory of past lives like humans, general humans might, only when they're young. Then they take the aspect of not remembering them. So I said, Rinpoche, when you were young, do you remember your past life, identifying the Dalai Lama and everything? And he said, yes, absolutely clearly. And that's all he said. So I was very, it's like, that doesn't prove anything, but just to me, that was very moving because he would never exaggerate, never talk about his own qualities at all. And this was something he just matter-of-factly said, yeah, of course. Saw that very, very clearly.
Should I go get Carrie? Are we done with the test? He's waiting in the hallway.
Oh, no. Carrie.
Yeah, we're done?
Yeah. Yes.
Is there, in terms of spiritual development, is there some dividing line or some point at which you can remember certain things about a prior life where that mindfulness is?
When you, in this lifetime, it's possible even this lifetime that you can develop the clairvoyance that recalls former lives. That's one of the different kinds of clairvoyance that you can develop. The way that you develop it all depends upon developing tranquil abiding and penetrative insight. It's kind of like the hot water. I remember Lama Yeshe used to talking about, if you have hot water, you can make coffee, instant coffee, you can make soup. You can, that's the basic ingredient. You need to have the hot water. So this tranquil abiding and penetrative insight is like the basic cause that can give rise to the various kinds of clairvoyance, being able to emanate bodies, to know others' minds, to know your past lives, to know the future and so forth, to have divine eye and so forth, to see distant objects, to hear to hear teachings, even when you're sitting here, to hear teachings Buddhas are giving in other pure lands, let alone other cities. So it's possible to develop. And once one has that once one starts to develop on the path, it's said that the bodhisattvas or the tantrikas that are practicing the path, they can have mindfulness through the bardo state, through the death process, through the bardo, through rebirth, always just continually practicing that same stream. Right now, we sort of, if we were to have the great fortune and what we say, luck, to be born as a human again next lifetime, probably we would be oblivious of what all the practices that we had done this lifetime, because we don't have that kind of level of development yet, but it is possible. Okay, so let's go a little bit further. We don't have much time left. Let's go a little bit further in the text. So we're talking about rebirth, or taking birth. Okay.
On page 10 of the foreword, there was a statement there that confused me a little bit.
Page 10 of the foreword.
Page 10, yeah, the foreword. In the second full paragraph, the end, they were talking about, it starts out, if a place of birth appropriate is not found, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end of it, it says, it talks about how you can go through this at most 6 times, right? The longest time you spend in the intermediate state, 49 days. It says, this means that those beings who even a year after dying report that they have not found a birthplace are not in the intermediate state, but have actually taken rebirth as a spirit.
Right. Do you catch it?
What it seems to imply to me is that they think they are their former self, but they don't realize they've changed from one being into a different being.
Let's just check. Where is it? Which paragraph is that?
Okay, so it's like the second full paragraph at the very end. It starts.
The second, the end of the second full paragraph. Okay. The intermediate being has all 5 senses, also has clairvoyance, unobstructiveness, and the ability to arrive immediately wherever he or she wants. He or she sees other intermediate beings of his or her own type. Hell being. Okay, next paragraph. This means that those beings who, even a year, read the sentence before this. This can occur at most 6 times, the deaths, this minor deaths, with the result that the longest period spent in the intermediate state is 49 days. And remember, our text talked about that meant human days. This means that those beings who, even a year after dying, report that they have not found a birthplace. So, for instance, you have died, and a year later, there's a being who reports, I have not found a birthplace. That's not you. That's some other spirit that was like the same ones who come and tell, oh, I'm suffering, please help me.
Well, but here they're giving okay, so they have not taken birth as a spirit. They are not in the intermediate state. They've taken birth as a spirit. They took birth as a spirit, not some other being imitating them as a spirit.
I'm not sure that's because His Holiness probably didn't speak this in English. I'm not sure that's translated correctly. I'm not sure. It might mean also those beings, even a year after dying, report that they have not found a birthplace. Well, I think that would be some kind of I don't know what that means exactly. Let's continue on. Okay. Yeah, who they're reporting to? Reporting to the proctor. So where did we get last time? Page what? 59. Middle of the page. A person of little merit hears clamorous noises. So this is talking about the rebirth, right? The desire and hatred act as a cause of death, and the intermediate being enters the womb. So a person of little merit, this is commentary, hears clamorous noises and has a sense of entering into a marsh, a dark forest, or the like. Whereas one accustomed to good deeds hears peaceful and pleasant sounds and has a sense of going inside a nice house. I think we just went beyond this here. The Many Levels chapter of Asanga's Actuality of the Levels says that whereas the father and mother are not actually lying together at that time, since the smell eater, the bardo being, mistakenly perceives the semen and blood, the semen and egg, as such, as father and mother, sees them as father and mother. However, Vasubandhu's Abhidharma Kosha, the lower Abhidharma, explains that it is actually sees the mother and father lying together. So maybe in some cases sees the mother and father lying together, but ultimately there are cases of just perceiving the actual fertilized egg and perceiving that due to karmic appearance as father and mother and generating these desires and so forth. When male and female become absorbed together in sexual intercourse, so this is a word that's often used when we talk about tantric teachings, absorption. Sometimes absorption means like the meditative absorptions, but it also means that tantric state of union, what looks like sexual union, is not ordinary union. It's one in which the mind is actually absorbed in concentration. One has the divine pride of being the deity, and one is embracing the divine pride of appearance, that one is embracing one's counterpart, a deity also, not ordinary, your ordinary fantasy. So that's important in that case. Lama Yeshe used to say that sometime, if one reached the state in Highest Yoga Tantra where one might rely upon a consort, if one was really a higher practitioner, one would only have to rely on the consort once. It's not like you have to do it again and again. And just by the remembering consciousness of that, one can induce the bliss and so forth and final absorptions that one necessitated that consort for. Also, at that time, Lama used to say it was like almost like you're almost like a corpse. It's like you have your eyes are not functioning. You're not like you're looking at the other party thinking, wow, what a knockout, and oh, they smell great, or whatever. You're completely in a meditative state, totally in a state of absorption. So when male and female become absorbed together in sexual intercourse, through the force of this is just talking about ordinary sexual intercourse, through the force of the churning about of their sexual organs, churning, that's probably the literal term, probably modern day we use different terms. The force of the churning about of their sexual organs, the downward moving wind shifts upward, and the ordinary inner heat of the triple intersection, that means of the central channel and the right and left channels, that's at the navel chakra, is ignited. The heat melts the white and red drops which descend within the empty insides of the 72,000 channels. Through this, the body and mind are blissfully satisfied, and at the end, during a period of strong desire, a thick regenerative fluid arises. After that, these drops of semen and blood, which definitely do emerge from both the male and female, are mixed in the mother's womb. The consciousness of the dying intermediate being enters into the middle of this, which is like the cream formed on boiled milk. So I think what it's referring to here is that in ordinary, other than in the tantric absorption, in ordinary sexual intercourse, there is something similar happening. The white and red bodhicittas are also melting due to the force of heat being generated by the force of the downward moving wind turning upward, but it's not within the central channel. It's going to be outside the central channel, and that heat then expands throughout the 72,000 nadis of the body, or as many as one. The sense depends on how grandiose orgasm, I suppose, it is. That extends, that heat then causes the drops within some of those nadis to melt, and that's what causes the ordinary sexual bliss, which cannot be sustained. That's why there's always a climax to that ordinary sexual bliss. Whereas in Tantra, one has from the beginning not allowed that the downward wind to be causing the heat outside the central channel to heat up. All the heat is within the central channel. And in so doing, one can keep that blissful state for hours, for days, whereas sexual orgasm, ordinary sexual orgasm can't be, the actual final climatic state can't be kept for more than an instant. I saw some article on the web the other day on Salon. It's one of the web magazines. Do you ever read that? And it was talking about, some average, it said the average adult's experiences orgasm 12 minutes a year. Did you read that? I mean, assuming in youth when they're having a normal amount of sexual intercourse, 12 minutes. So that doesn't seem like a lot when you think of a year. 12 minutes. Why did I get into this? 12 minutes a year. You know? Yeah, right. And who knows? That's maybe sexually active. But that kind of orgasm, that kind of climactic orgastic bliss doesn't even approach the kind of bliss that one can achieve through Highest Yoga Tantra, which can be sustained for hours, more than 12 minutes. And within that, because that very, very subtle mind is not, the winds are not allowed to migrate through the 72,000 nadis to cause the other bindu there to melt and go out, but actually through the different processes, the bindu is actually brought into the central channel to accentuate, to intensify the bliss within the central channel. So that's one of the distinguishing characteristics of Highest Yoga Tantra. It's not a matter of trying to prevent the loss of the seminal liquids through some kind of, holding back. That can be very, very dangerous. People think if they're not bringing the airs in the central channel, when this kind of sexual union or a visualization of the sexual union takes place and the bindu begins to melt in the 72,000 nadis outside the central channel, one can get all sorts of physical kind of problems by trying to retain that. So there's a very big difference between that kind of process and the natural kind of retention when the airs are in the central channel. Okay, so this in the case of ordinary sexual union, so the bardo being is in the presence of or near the mother and father that are engaging in ordinary sexual union, their fluids, the male fluid anyway, is the white substance is going down into the seminal fluid. The mother's red bindu is going, I believe, into the womb, into the sexual organ also, and there's some meeting of these. Okay. With regard to how this occurs, the intermediate being initially enters by any of three doors. We mentioned this briefly last time. The mouth of the male, the top of the head of the male, or the female's womb. So in some tantras, it talks, in some initiations, it talks about we enter into the father's mouth and so forth. Other times through the crown of the head, sometimes directly into the womb. It then associates with the regenerative fluid that has descended from within the 72,000 channels of the male and female and mixed in the womb. Excuse me, the winds that cause the movement of conceptuality during the intermediate state dissolve. Notice this is answer to your question, Don. Whereupon the minds of appearance increase in near attainment, dawn, and stages. Wasn't that, remember, these are the winds that cause the movement of conceptuality during the intermediate state dissolve, whereupon, oh no, this is not the same question yet, whereupon the minds of appearance increase in near attainment, dawn. This is the same as the forward order, right? No, the death of the bardo would be from the clear light in reverse order, right? Or the where's the forward order taking place? This is in the death process of the bardo being, right? These and the clear light of the intermediate being's death appear quickly, merely being generated for a period shorter than those explained earlier at the point of leaving the gross body. The signs from mirage to clear light occur, and a continuation of a similar type of clear light makes, in the center of the mixed semen and blood, the connection to the next life. The signs from mirage to clear light occur, and a continuation of similar light of the clear light makes the connection to the next life. So it sounds as though the continuation of clear light actually enters into, the clear light of the Bardo being actually enters into that fertilized egg and then begins the reverse order from there. The taking of rebirth and the establishment of the near attainment of the reverse process are simultaneous. Yes?
So what it's saying here then is that the forward appearance is moving from the forward progression of the mind of appearance increasing near attainment. That's going on the death of the Bardo being. And
Just as in our death there will be these, yeah.
Okay.
Right, up until the clear light.
Up until
then that clear light is migrating toward the fertilized egg. As soon as it's entered into and takes rebirth, one is entered into the black near attainment, the reverse order out of that. Okay, good. So who got 100% on the midterm? Did anyone feel they got over 50%? Nancy? Nancy's a good student. Okay, I'm impressed. I think she takes hints from her rabbit. How she does it. He was helpful. Okay. So let's dedicate the merits that we've created. If you've noticed the other day when we did puja with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, the long, extensive merits that again and again dedicating the merits in many different ways. But the real meaning of dedication is this sense of aspiration, trying to wish. Conventional dedication is the aspiration that the merits ripen in this particular way so that they're not just squandered and lost, so that they only bring a small result. So if we think in general of our future enlightenment for the sake of sentient beings, due to these merits that we have accumulated through our study of this text, our contemplation of it today, meditation on it to some degree, may we quickly achieve enlightenment for the sake of benefiting all sentient beings, spontaneously, effortlessly able to lead them out of suffering into everlasting blissful happiness. This is what I wish these merits, I'm dedicating them in this way, I'm placing them in trust in this way. This is how I want them to ripen. And then try to seal the dedication in the emptiness of the three spheres. In this case, in dedication, I mean the merits, the goals dedicated to, and the active dedication, the aspiration trying to join those two. All three spheres empty individually of inherent existence.